look to prioritize the Lux. It depends if this is something that IgNar feels comfortable and confident playing in. We know that it's a very strong priority support right now in the current meta, but instead it seems to be this Neeko flex coming out from the side of Schalke. Now, we have seen from G2 that it can be played top, mid, and bot. Yet to see it jungle. I've heard rumblings that it may be able to be played there, but expectations are solo laners, and it can typically be picked pretty blind to most matchups. So a very safe start from the side of Schalke does give Origen the ability to prioritize a strong early jungler in the likes of Jarvan or Rek'Sai. On top of that, it gives them one of the big flex picks that are still up and available in the Irelia.
Get that Irelia early on. Yet to see any Schalke player play the Neeko this split, so it is a little bit of a change for them. Alongside that, Origen looking towards the Lux as their second pick. Haven't locked it in yet, so shouldn't talk too much about it, but now they do, and so we can.
So this is something that we were just talking about, how with Karma, Yuumi, and Rakan all kind of taken off the board, Lux then becomes the next big support pick. Origen very quick to grab that one for themselves. Mithy did play it not too long ago, and while they did not find that win, he did actually have a very effective performance on it. He just couldn't quite match Hylissang's roaming power on the Rakan. So I think this is a comfortable pick to the side of Origen. They can still flex the Irelia to both top and mid. So right now, the draft, very vague, a lot of options available to them.
I think the big thing is talking about that roaming power for Mithy, though, because where IgNar has been so strong in the past is roaming and teaming up with his junglers, teaming up with Trick, and Lux doesn't quite give you that extra impetus to roam around. So we'll see if IgNar is able to free himself from the shackles of bottom lane and roam around, and if he does, can Mithy then follow him?
So Schalke deciding to prioritize a bit of an early game jungler in the form of the Olaf. They also locked themselves the Sivir, one of Upset's signature champions. Well, I say that, I feel like every European AD carry
everyone can play
Sivir as their signature champion at some point, but he had a great performance on it last week in their game versus Splice. He had that very clutch auto reset that actually allowed them to take the Nexus, and I think they're going to be very comfortable with that. So far, Schalke, they still have a lot of options in their composition as well. The Neeko can be, of course, flexed, either into the mid lane or the top lane. The Olaf gives you a lot of early game jungling options. So the question is, where will Schalke look to play around in the early game? For the time being, Origen are going to answer just with a Jarvan. So both teams, I feel like, kind of keeping their options open for now, not really tunneling into any kind of specific composition for the time being, but Origen looking to limit some of the support champions that could potentially answer the luck.
I do really like that from Origen as well. Get rid of some of those champions who can catch you pretty easily with the Dredge Line, with the Death Sentence. Maybe the Blitzcrank a possibility here for IgNar. He has played it in the past and it's pretty good into the Lux, but with the Kalista band away, Schalke will look for their final ban of the second phase, and we'll get into those picks in a moment. There's the Xayah. So lots of AD carries, lots of supports, lots of bot lane bans that you expected to come out, Vedius. So
I'd love to see Origen now lock in an AD carry. They could go for the Lux Ezreal. A lot of poke, a very safe lane, and a lot of, I think, also a very comfortable pick for Patrik. He showcased that great game up against G2, and we know that he's more than happy to play it. So I think this is a very solid bot lane for Origen. Now they can save their final pick to optimize their solo laners as much as possible.
Really nice prediction on that Ezreal pick as well there, Vedius. Schalke rotating through all of the supports that they can think of at the moment. Ivan was in there for a second as well. Promise you it wasn't one of us hiding in a costume, but maybe the Kennen will be their pick at this phase of the pick ban setup. I was about to say pick ban phase. I was going to say phase twice.
Excellently recovered from that.
I got there in the end. I got there in the end.
But now looking at support, what could it be for Schalke? Blitzcrank is something that you mentioned. I think it could be pretty good here. Obviously challenging against the Ezreal, which might be something that puts them off it. But I'm thinking of what other potential matchups could be good into the Lux.
So I'm debating whether the Alistair is okay.
I was thinking about the same.
Getting caught with the light binding is very frustrating, but something like the Braum actually makes a lot of sense. You put up the unbreakable wall, you can eat a lot of the damage that comes out from an Ezreal and a Lux.
Of course, it doesn't. I do believe that the second Q from Lux actually still goes through the Braum shield.
Quite possibly. I haven't seen the interaction enough to tell you definitively.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that definitively. We can track it in game. We'll see whether that or not that is the case. Meanwhile, Origen going to round things out with a scaling mid laner in the form of Viktor. I think that's usually one of the best things to do against Neeko. In the early laning phase, she likes to push a lot, she likes to poke a lot, and a safe farming mid lane mage can often be a great answer to it. So I quite like the Viktor. unless they decide that they actually want the Viktor up against the Kennen, which is a slightly safer lane. You don't have the melee into the range, but and then you're going to run the Irelia into the Neeko. I think this can be quite a challenging lane for the Irelia. If you get hit by that root, it sets up very nicely for the Olaf to come and look to play around that lane. Of course, Irelia and Jarvan, very strong 2v2 mid jungle. So Origen showcasing a higher priority on that duo, and I wouldn't be surprised to see them moving around the map in the early game to try and find some early advantages.
I find it interesting that Origen put as much faith into Nukeduck as they do. Of course, a legacy player here, but hasn't had the best of performances over the last couple of weeks. Went 1-4-1 when Origen played up against Fnatic on the Aatrox. Struggled a little bit against Misfits and against G2 as well. Obviously, he has a wealth of skill and a wealth of champion pool, but you do wonder whether it would be easier just to give him an easy matchup to get himself back into his stride.
Well, we shall have to wait and see. I'm hoping that we see a lot of Kold playing around Nukeduck, trying to get him into a more favorable position. If he goes for early wave clear, the matchup should be a little bit easier, but Schalke, they're going to look to do the same. This Olaf going to be looking for a lot of early game plays. Let's see which jungler comes out on top.
Once more into the breach we stand as we watch Schalke set up their battle lines against Origen here. Looking across the runes and masteries, nothing too intriguing. No Klepto in the top lane is always an important note.
Oh, look at this solo queue level 1 strat though, Medic. Grouping up through the mid lane. They do land the Braum Q, but there's the immediate binding coming out from Mithy. Looks pretty good at countering that, but we do know that Braum can be very obnoxious, which is why in solo queue you should always follow your support. Look for those early invades.
Stand behind Braum.
Yeah, see if you can get a couple of cheeky flashes out. Not able to find anything, but returning back to your point about the runes, you can see the phase rush sitting on top of the Kennen, very common in a lot of range matchups, has that extra bit of mobility, can help you close the gap or escape in what could be a dire situation. You also have the Glacial Augment on Neeko, very common these days. Usually you see the Hextech GLP.
Super Soaker build.
Yeah, there synergizes very well with her ability to get those slows and then land the follow-up skill shots. And then, of course, the Unsealed Spellbook on the Braum. So just gives you a couple of options, given that your AD carry is running Teleport. You can switch it over to Ignite a little bit later on if you want to try and make an aggressive play. But I'm not really expecting that in this 2 versus 2.
Across the map, I expect lanes probably to be pretty even here. We talked about how Nukeduck can struggle a little bit into Abbedagge in the mid lane. Kold will spend some time around there to try and even that one out. Top lane, both ranged matchups, seems like they can trade pretty effectively into each other. And Sivir, so adept at just pushing out waves. Unless Mithy's landing those bindings incredibly effectively, I don't really see too much action without jungler interference.
So I think in the top lane, what you'll notice is that as the lane goes longer and levels start to come through, this matchup only gets better and better for Alphari, mainly because it's very easy for him to harass with the E, and the Kennen can't really trade back unless you try to go for the all-in. But then, of course, if you do, the W can come down from the Viktor, and unless you have the phase rush, you're going to get locked up.
That makes sense.
So it's only going to get high, and you can just see how obnoxious that poke is, right? And as long as Alphari positions properly behind the minions, it's difficult for Odoamne to really look for those trade backs. Meanwhile, in the mid lane, it should go slightly more in favor of Abbedagge. Early on, he's going to look to poke and harass and just utilize his E and his Q to just be obnoxious and get that extra bit of wave clear. His wave clear isn't the strongest early on because the Q only pops when you're actually getting kills or hitting the enemy champion. So you're going to try and do both at once, as you can see just there. So I expect mid to be slightly Schalke favored, top to be slightly OG favored, but in the bot lane, because of Sivir versus Ezreal, normally you always have that extra bit of push. However, I expect it to neutralize a little bit more once Mithy actually gets a couple levels under his belt, once he can start harassing and being more of a threat from range.
You can see Kold spotted out here by Trick in the early jungle pathing. Trick actually did wolves down towards his entire bottom side clear, and now will go up towards his blue after taking the scuttle, but we did see Alphari push forward and try and get some vision down towards that blue.
And notice how it's because of Trick playing where he has pressure. He saw that mid lane had the early prio in mid, pushing the Irelia underneath the tower. Bot lane has already pushed up, and they're looking for an early game.
Flash in from Abbedagge, looking for the Tangle Bar, but Trick wasn't able to get there in time as Nukeduck flashed away. Very strong reactions from the mid laner from Origen, and you could see already IgNar roaming up, joining up with his jungler. We said we expected it, but very early on in this matchup. Now, Kold has been able to sneak himself into this bush. Abbedagge still just clearing out the wave and should be safe for the time being.
So yeah, no successful gank in the mid lane. I'm quite surprised that Abbedagge would actually choose to flash that. Like, very aggressive, trying to get an early start, want to try and put Nukeduck behind. When Origen played up against Fnatic, one of the things that they did was actually send multiple members to the mid lane and then put Nukeduck behind. And I feel like this is something that slowed Origen down pretty dramatically, largely because they wanted to try and utilize their strong early game where they had kind of winning matchups everywhere. And the moment that kind of fell apart for them is when Origen struggled to be super proactive in the early game. And it kind of looked like Schalke were looking to do a similar thing, try and put Nukeduck behind, try and limit this strong 2 versus 2. I feel like Trick definitely got spotted out.
I mean, he's on a ward.
No, but even before the ward, I feel like the wave was in a place there to spot him out. Either way, he's just going to go back to base, help alleviate some of the pressure from Odoamne. Early on, you can see that Alphari burning through a lot of his mana in trying to harass out the Kennen, but it will give him this pretty healthy CS lead. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Alphari look for a back relatively soon. Ideally, he wants to go back at around 1250 gold so that he can just immediately buy his upgrade, and he's very close to that point right now.
We'll have a see. Quick look on the picture-in-picture. Yes, he got spotted out. I bet that's on the ward anyway. So the ward would spot him out.
Right. Okay.
Basically, we proved nothing there.
We proved nothing. You're right.
Apart from the fact Alphari definitely saw him on the ward he was standing on.
That's for sure. Right, so let's have a look at the rest of the game. You can see that Trick continuing to play around the bot side of the map because he's utilizing where he has early game pressure. Kold can't really look to move anywhere, largely because the only place he has priority is in the top lane. So he's forced to play a little bit more defensively, but the Spidey senses are tingling. OG recognize the ocean is starting, and here comes Kold.
And Patrick's back, picked up a Sheen and teleported into the lane as well, so they have the item advantage. Alphari has his teleport to join this fight. Odoamne has his as well. Kold with a knockback, Trick flashes away, but has the blast gun if he wants to join the fight again. IgNar sitting in the pit, Abbedagge with the pop blossom. The artillery lands, and Upset can shred through them. First blood over to Odo. They're looking for a little bit more. Nukeduck come forward, Kold down as well. This is a bloodbath. Schalke able to pick up so many kills, double for Odo. Patrik still here, just poking out as much as he can. IgNar needs to get out of the back of the pit. Upset has the flash, so does IgNar. Odo down towards the bottom side, able to get away. IgNar puts up the unbreakable, and Schalke escape.
Unbelievable fight at only 5 minutes into the game. Origen did not want to let that Ocean Drake go down, so they threw everything and the kitchen sink on top of it to try and deny it from Schalke. But those crucial level 6s had come through from the side of Schalke. So again, look at the minimap. You can see that Abbedagge gets to move first. Even though the teleport comes through, Origen are actually in a bit of an awkward situation here where they're being collapsed on Abbedagge. Odoamne comes in, he's going to get level 6 in the fight and then use the Maelstrom following, and it just felt like that Origen was just coming in one at a time, one after the other, and they couldn't sync. They hadn't reached those big power spikes yet to allow them, or level spikes rather, to turn this fight in their favor.
I'll admit, I was expecting a lot more damage to come out at times as well.
I mean, we're level
all
6,
of the elements are being used. That should be shredded, but not quite enough damage. 2 kills over to Odo, though. He's got himself a Hextech revolver already picked up, and 2 long swords as well. So it's going to have a lot of damage and poke in that top lane, maybe equalizing the advantage that Alphari has because of the 1v1 matchup.
It's definitely given him the gold advantage, so Odoamne is sitting pretty happy. The important thing to know is that a lot of summoner spells were used in that last exchange, so this is a prime opportunity for both junglers to now look for potential ganks. It could be pretty difficult, given how defensive a lot of these lanes are for both sides, but I really think mid lane would be a great opportunity for the side of Origen, or even top lane once Alphari gets his ultimate back up, for them to look for a play, look for a gank. And remember that with Kold having his ulti and Trick not having his yet, it's a very easy opportunity for Origen to swing things back in their favor. So in that light, Schalke have to play defensively. They have to play on the back foot. They recognize that right now it probably isn't the best time for them to fight. Let's wait for cooldowns. Let's buy a little bit more time and just be cautious of what Kold is up to.
That makes a lot of sense. We're only 8 minutes in. Yes, we've had a massive 5v5 team fight, but that doesn't mean you have to keep the game going at a breakneck pace for the next while. Slow it down, reset, wait for those first items, steal away some jungle. And that's exactly what Trick is doing. Now, Kold is in the right place at the right time as Odoamne has been forced back behind this tower. Nukeduck on his way up as well. Origen pushing up towards this top side of the map. They've drawn a line down the middle, said, okay, you can have bot. We'll let Trick play down there, but for now, we're going to try and force Odoamne away from some of these CS.
This is a great example of how to utilize the pressure.
Mithy, the Ragnarok comes out. There's just nothing you can do. You can't stop an Olaf who's just running you down if you're playing Lux.
Now, I have to assume that Origen didn't have vision of Trick invading onto the blue buff, but with that ward, that suggests to me,
up around the side. They're looking for the dive underneath the tower. IgNar's going to tank it up, but Kold is here in time. The Cataclysm was available if he wanted to go for any further chase. Decides against it.
Yeah, so as we were saying, teleport flank actually coming in from
Betty, the fights are happening.
No, IgNar's coming in.
IgNar's coming up towards the top lane. Odoamne's going to use the slicing match and gets the stun on Alphari, but look at the damage from the Chaos Storm. Now it's all on IgNar. Still has the ultimate for himself. Alphari's going to get locked up. There's the Glacial Fissure. Odo's just going to step forward when this concussive blow comes out, but Alphari able to take the 2v1. The teleport used by IgNar, and Alphari survives with so much HP.
Odoamne wanted to join that fight, but he knew that Alphari was just sitting there with his third arm, looking for that death ray. He wanted to electrocute and destroy the little lightning rat, so he was forced to back away. Alphari there, beautiful stuff in the 2 versus 1. Can't say the same for the bot lane though. Mithy face checks the brush, walks into Trick. They were the ones that had priority in the bot side of that. You were just saying it, Medic. They traded sides.
So here's the thing, Trick actually goes all the way around.
There we are.
Vision.
See, so yes, as Mithy didn't have information, he didn't know that Trick was there, and because he has all this river vision, he actually believes that he's safe. So I can understand a lot more of why Mithy actually does his face check. He's heading this way because he actually wants to drop the ward on the blue is what you expect, and then there's the Olaf. Goes for the collapse, and there's nothing that the duo can do. He had the exhaust, but he may not have at the time, but either way, it wouldn't have made a difference. So it was an easy pickup for the side of Trick.
And now we see Origen actually going for these reverse lanes, bringing Patrik and Mithy up towards the top side, trying to relieve some of that pressure, forcing Odoamne into a 2v1 lane, whereas IgNar and Upset going for the plates, pick up 2 down towards this bottom lane. And they'll be happy backing off from this. There's a 1,000 gold lead for Schalke 10 minutes in, and they're in a pretty good spot against Origen.
It actually makes a lot of sense from the side of Origen because Alphari's in a great position. Not only has he already got his first upgrade of the Hex Core, but he's also got the Lost Chapter. So he's got a lot of mana, he's got some AP, and he's got his upgraded E, which means that a 2 versus 1, he can wave clear very safely, and his W, the Gravity Field, actually helps a lot when the enemy is trying to dive. Now, that doesn't help very much against an Olaf, admittedly. Yeah. However, if the Braum and the Sivir try anything funny, it's a lot harder to dive this Viktor. So this means that while Schalke can continue to play through bot, Alphari will feel safe, whereas Origen now have a couple more options trying to play through the top side of the map.
And Trick and Schalke playing down towards this bottom side as the Infernal Drake comes up. Origen, I think they're going to go for the Rift Herald instead. They've got Mithy and Patrik up towards top lane, so their numbers advantage is on the top side of the map. Infernal for Rift Herald. It's an interesting trade, not one we see too often. Usually people want to fight around that fiery Drake, but Schalke will get it pretty easily. And do want to commend Trick. His early game jungling has been pretty effective this game. Yeah,
Trick so far playing around his pressure very well. I like that he's utilized his bot lane to invade and get a lot of steals away from the enemy camp. Alphari does have flash, so he should be safe in this situation. But talking about that trade that you were just saying, Infernal for Rift Herald, yes. This just means that you can utilize the trade up towards top side. That's where your duo is, and hopefully you can try and secure the first tower of the game. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it in time, though.
With the Rift Herald charging in, I think Schalke are going to lose this battle. It's 3v2. The Rift Herald's going to get a swipe up here as well, and down towards the bottom side, there's some bulwark plates on that tower. It's very close. Origen will get the first tower. The second one will go down to Schalke. But look at that gold lead, 600 gold lead for Upset over Patrik now because of those extra plates.
You can see why Origen decided to make this play. You know, yes, they had to lose the Infernal, but it would have been worse given that they were guaranteed to lose that bot tower anyway. So now you kind of keep the map stay even. You can both push out the wave, you can both back at the same time, you can reset out on the map, and overall the objectives are very even, and so is the gold. The biggest differences right now, as you already alluded to, are down towards the bot side of the map. And we actually see, well, it's pretty much all on the bot side of the map. Support and AD carry for the side of Schalke are the ones that have that advantage. So first items now coming through for both teams.
And you've got the Essence Reaver completed onto Upset. Expect Essence into Infinity Edge, Sheen and Manamune on Patrik. It's the standard build that we see on Ezreal most days. Super Soko on Abbedagge, the GLP 800, and it's going to be the Hextech Gunblade on Odo. So strong in the lane, but he's been pinned back so much by Alphari, who's having a stellar performance on this Viktor.
We can now see OG starting to split up the map a little bit more. Teleports are available for all 3 Origen members. Meanwhile, for Schalke, they only have Odos available. Fortunately for Schalke, no objective to really play around right now. They just have to be cautious of getting baited into a fight. But for Origen, it's a little bit harder for them to do that because their next objective is to try and pressure this mid-tier 1, and in an ideal world actually secure this bot tier 1.
Is that the intention for Origen? Is that their game plan for the rest of this match? 1-3-1, get the Viktor in a side lane, get the Irelia in a side lane, and really try and pull Schalke around the map, who seem to be more teamfight focused?
So I think both comps actually have a lot of teamfight elements. I think that it's very reminiscent of what we saw from Splyce, where Origen's composition works better the longer the fight plays out, because you actually have a lot of poke with this comp, and then once you chip the target down enough, that's when you commit to the all-in with the Irelia and the Jarvan. But Lux, Ezreal, and Viktor, all very good at just sitting back, waiting, biding their time, whereas Schalke, they just kind of have to commit. They have to go in for the fight. And one of the things that we saw in that game earlier in the day is if you kind of half-heartedly go in for the fight and then you disengage, the obnoxious thing about an Ezreal is he doesn't let you escape. Yeah. So if you're not committing to the fight, it could actually hurt you ultimately more than it helps you, which means that you have to be very confident in going for the fights that you go for.
You have to be decisive with your decisions. Make those decisive calls, as we say. Final spike used by Mithy in the top lane, but two of those players that we talked about in those team fights that I want to highlight are Patrik and Upset, the Ezreal and the Sivir players. These two guys have had pretty good starts to the split. Odo is going to use the slicing mouse from here, flash away. He's going to escape. Let's talk about these two carries, because both of them have had very good starts to the split.
I mean, you want me to talk about them. The game doesn't want us to talk about them.
It's slowed down, but let's talk about Patrik and Upset.
Kold not going to find that kill. Let's talk a little bit about them. Patrik last split, he was a player that didn't really stand out that much on Origen. He was there. He had some solid performances. He was pretty reliable, but he wasn't really the namesake of the team. But so far this split, he's really grown into his own. He's becoming one of the big superstars, whereas Upset, he's always been one of those reliable AD carries that consistently outputs a high amount of damage and is a reliable carry for his team. However, due to the mixed success of Schalke, I don't think he's been able to showcase his full capabilities as of yet, even though his individual performances have been very solid so far.
There are times that, especially in 2019 in spring and now so far through summer, he reminds me of Patrik on H2K. Like, some of his team calls and some of the plays that his team make are kind of holding him back, and he needs to be released a little bit more, but I trust Schalke to make some of these plays.
Well, let's see if Schalke can make any of these plays happen on the map. As again, we're now approaching the mid-game. 16 minutes is when I start to think that like those first items are completed, objectives are respawning, everyone's kind of looking for things on the map. We can see the Ocean is actually spawning soon, and Schalke are investing resources up towards the top side of the map. The jungler's been sent up there. They have 2 members mid, whereas Origen, they're only keeping the Irelia up there with the teleport. Meanwhile, they're spending a couple more members down towards the bot side, so they want to guarantee vision control over the river, but as a result of that, they can't gain mid prio. So Schalke will be able to walk in, clear out a lot of this vision, and now, because the Kennen is on the bot side, one of the strong members for Schalke, Origen are going to be forced out.
Let's see if Nukeduck decides to teleport into this. You say Origen forced away, that's exactly how it's going for the moment. Kold and Alphari will jump in. Remember, Kennen, Odo doesn't have the slicing mouse, he's caught down towards the bottom side. Now Ocean Drake taken out, but Odo is sacrificed by the team. Abbedagge trying to get onto Patrik, but he's separated. Cataclysm comes out, Abbedagge coming down to join his team now. There's the Pop Blossom just trying to escape. With the shield will be enough for now, with Glacial Fissure as well disengaging.
So Schalke secure themselves the Drake, meanwhile Origen secure themselves a kill. Schalke will be forced to base, and because Nukeduck didn't use his teleport, he's been able to push in top, push in mid, and Origen are in a better position across the map in their entirety. But Schalke not choosing to reset just yet. Still feeling pretty healthy, have a decent amount of mana, and they want to clear out some of these waves, but that's only delaying. Remember, there's a lot of unspent gold right now on Origen. The longer they delay this back, the more it's going to hurt them overall, because Origen can just use this time to reset, then come back out on the map first, and actually start gaining vision control around areas like the Baron, like the River.
Let's have another look at this, because it's kind of split into 2 separate points. You can see Odo tries to join his team, but Kold and Alphari are ready for him.
Yeah, they've decided that they're not going to fight for the Drake. The Kennen is way closer. The time it takes for the teleport to arrive means that Schalke are going to have a numbers advantage. So instead, they just go for the kill, and they want to try and get a couple more. In the meantime, as you can see on your minimap, Nukeduck was just pushing these waves, trying to generate more pressure elsewhere on the map. And he's now started to build up a little bit more of a CS advantage. He's getting an experienced lead over his opposition. And speaking of a lead, Alphari is looking
that's dangerous from Odo. Slicing Maelstrom comes out the stun onto Alphari. Now Alphari still has the flash if he wants to chase, but just gets the ultimate out from the Kennen. and forces him away. As much as you'd say Nukeduck's getting a lead in mid, look at the lead for Upset down towards that bottom lane. About 40 farm ahead on average. A lot of this gold and a lot of the CS in the mid game is being funneled onto him because we always talk about the 400 CS Sivir win condition. If he can get there, he's going to be incredibly strong.
Yeah, he had that advantage in the early game where he was constantly pushing Patrik underneath the tower. And on top of that, as you rightly said, he's been the main focal point for Schalke to invest their resources. They're not moving Upset around the map, they're moving everyone else around the map. So the farm is being sacrificed in the sides, but Upset is always guaranteeing that he's getting this farm. And you can already see Odoamne versus Alphari, the big discrepancy that's starting to build. In the mid lane, not as much of a discrepancy, but it is there as Origen trying to invest more into their side laners and hoping that Patrik can still offer value, even if he is a little bit behind Upset.
IgNar did get caught with a binding there. Didn't see it go through for the connection trick coming up here towards the top side. IgNar on his way up as well. And once again, Odo just forced away down towards that bottom lane. He's a team fight bot now, looking for that slicing maelstrom, looking for flank positions. He's not going to ever be able to 1v1 Alphari in a side lane.
But you can see very clearly how the Viktor, as the longer the game goes on, gets only stronger and stronger up against this Kennen matchup, and why many pros in Europe consider it a strong counter. And Alphari now has full control over this side wave. Nukeduck, by going for the Tiamat, has a little bit more wave clear and can also pressure Abbedagge. So OG actually have control over the sides. The problem is they can't gain mid control because of this Sivir, because of the amount of wave clear and the protection that IgNar provides. Origen can't quite convert this pressure on sides into very much elsewhere on the map.
But that's what they're trying to do. They've seen that Schalke are playing around that top side of the map for the last while. They know they don't really have too much vision in the river. So Alphari pushes out bot, he comes up, joins his team, and maybe looks to surprise Schalke in a 4v5 situation. Oh. It's not going to happen. I wanted action, Vedius. I like fights.
Problem is, mate, it's Origen versus Schalke, and very rarely are you going to get a bunch of fights in this kind of a matchup. Both these teams are a lot more controlled, a lot more reserved.
True.
They tend to not take gambles or risks. That's why I was so surprised by the fight at 5 minutes and 30. But unfortunately, it was just kind of a trick. It was like, ooh, look, we're going to fight a lot this game, and then they don't. So like in terms of next steps where we could potentially see a fight, Baron becomes like the next big point of contention. But remember that for Origen, they don't necessarily just want to force a fight, right? They want to chip away at you, they want to poke you down, they want drawn-out fights. Whereas Schalke, they have so many big AoEs, right? Sivir ultimate into Neeko ultimate, into Kennen ultimate. You just kind of want to hit as many people as possible. But again, it's really hard. It's always hard when you're playing against the likes of an Ezreal, and when you're playing up against a Viktor who can drop his gravity field and actually split teams apart if it's in between the front line and the back line. So there's so much disruption on the side of Origen, you really have to pick your moments, which is why I'm concerned this is going to be a little bit more of a drawn-out game medic, because both teams will wait for that opportune moment before really pulling the trigger, or someone will make a mistake, which the other will look to capitalize.
I think if I'm looking at it from a Schalke perspective, though, I'm pretty happy with that generally. Like, in spring, they were known to make a few mistakes. They were known to sometimes be a little bit over-eager to take fights, especially around Barons and stuff. Here, they seem a lot more methodical, they seem a lot more measured, and they're kind of playing Origen at their own game.
Now look at the map state, though. 5 members of Origen are around the dragon. They know that it's going to be spawning soon, but Abbedagge is making his way down through the river. They don't know where Kold is. Well, they probably would have spotted him now.
Odo has definitely spotted him now. Kold forced down towards the bottom side of this as Schalke push into the river. Meanwhile, Nukeduck in the bottom lane is just getting that wave towards the tower, and Schalke try and get some vision control, but it's very superficial in the river right now.
So you can see again, Origen have the numbers disadvantage in mid lane, so they can't gain control over the mid lane, which means that Schalke always get to move first into the river, and Origen are just losing a lot of farm up towards top side, but Origen are not stupid. They are doing the same thing on the bot side of the map. They're creating pressure, and they're making sure that if we're losing resources, you also lose resources, and they can't really move to that bot side because then they lose control of a mid and potentially control of a dragon.
It's a big level discrepancy between the AD carries, actually, as Patrik pings 12, 13 on Upset. Nukeduck a level ahead of his lane opponent, as well as now the Mountain Drake has been started. Schalke going for it. Kold has the flank, straight into the Cataclysm, straight into their demise. Schalke lose 2, and Origen come out on top.
Beautifully played by Origen. They landed so much good poke before the fight started, and then Kold finds that perfect flank to allow Origen to find 2 kills and make their way towards the Baron.
Good delay there, man. To get it right. Make the way towards the next objective. It's going to be the Baron for Origen. They should secure this pretty easily. Trick is still alive, has the flash if he wants to go for a fight.
Wow.
Teleport coming in. Here we go. Oh, Odo, 8 seconds away with his TP as well. The bases come out, but maybe Schalke could just go straight for it if they want to. That was my my solo queue brain speaking there. Schalke should never go for the dragon right now. Patrick's going to teleport back into the fight, and Origen able to make the right call and not force the dragon.
That was very smart. I respect that a lot from Origen. They realize that death time is very low, but let's have a look at this. They have no idea that Kold is just sitting in this fog of war point. They can see where the rest of Origen is coming from, but again, great ultimate from the side of Patrik to start the chip. Then Nukeduck lands his ultimate, then Alphari lands his E, and then Kold comes in for the engage. At this point, Origen are like, all right, we've had the setup, we just need to start the fight, and they play their composition beautifully. Slow and patient, very well done. Schalke very limited in their options to kind of answer back.
And now you've got a Trinity Force Titanic Hydra finished on Nukeduck in that side lane. Abbedagge is not going to be able to deal with him, nor's Odoamne. So many power spikes hit here for the Origen team, even though the gold is still pretty much even. Origen definitely the team on the front foot, definitely the team advancing their line in towards the Schalke jungle.
And I love to track levels in games like this because when Origen have had so much time and focus to invest in their side lanes, it's important to know how strong their side lanes are. And both Nukeduck and Alphari level 14 right now versus the 14 of Abbedagge, but to the 12 of Odo. He's really struggled in the matchup against Alphari, but on top of that, he's been joining his team a lot. Abbedagge has been the one soaking up a lot of this side lane farm, so he's now in a position where he started off 2-0-0 and was very strong, but he's not getting those same resources, and now he's fallen further and further behind. So these team fights are only going to get harder because what was a very strong point for Schalke is now arguably one of the weaker points given the state of Kennen in the game right now.
Now Schalke do get pushed in mid here. They could take the tower. They're actually looking to collapse. Trick upsetting on their way. Teleport coming in behind. There's a blast cone there for them as well, but Abbedagge might just go all the way around.
Look at how they kite back. They're just slowly chipping away at Schalke. Can they find the fight?
Odo, he's in the right position. True Shot Barrage comes out. Trick down to below half HP. Origen using the push in the top lane. Could just go for the tower here, and Schalke have to disengage, burn both their teleports.
But again, props to Schalke, props to Origen rather. We said it earlier on in the game where if you're going for a fight, you have to commit. You have to make sure it's the right one because sometimes it can hurt you more than it can help you. And that was a perfect situation where Schalke, it looks like they had the perfect setup, but they couldn't quite find the pieces. They couldn't quite get things to connect. So they lost the teleport, and while they secured the mid tier 1, they end up trading it for a tier 2 in the top lane.
I obviously didn't get enough sleep right there because I was like, how on earth did Trick just turn into upset? I'm so confused.
That's happened way too often to me. Neeko literally traps me all of the time. Yeah. I saw an Olaf running down the river earlier and I'm like, that's a Neeko, that's a Neeko, that's a Neeko. Don't
have to tell yourself it quite a few times. 1,000 goal lead here for Origen. They are a Mountain Drake to double Ocean and Inferno on the side of Schalke. 3 completed items on both of our AD carries now. They're going to be hitting like trucks when this next team fight comes out. But as you say, Origen will just kite back, and choose the moment to engage. Whereas Schalke just have to go hell for leather, all guns blazing into the firing line if they want to take the fight to Origen.
So Origen now making their way back towards the Baron. Notice how they've got all 5 members here. Even though they have teleport on Alphari, by grouping up as 5, you can brute force your way towards an objective. And knowing that the Sivir has just gone back to base, wants to spend a little bit more gold, Origen can force this play and gain some vision control around the river. But now they've moved back out to mid and top, which has allowed Schalke to get a little bit more vision control around the Baron area. So both teams just trading back and forth for the time being. What makes this really difficult for Origen right now is they haven't taken this mid-tier 1. Yep. And they're not going to as long as Sivir is alive. So they need to create as much pressure on the side lanes so that they can create a numbers advantage mid. And that's the only way they're going to force upset off this tower, because if he stays, then there's the risk of him getting dived.
And definitely, as Origen is still playing the vision game around this Baron, I want to look at the wider picture, the bigger picture, the story of the LEC right now. A few people were asking if Origen are still our 3rd best team in the league coming into today, because we've only seen them lose Only seen them beat teams lower than them. Haven't seen them beat G2 or Fnatic. I think this game sort of proves that when Origen find their style, when they find their stride, they are definitely one of the best teams in the LEC.
Well, they still have to win, Medic.
That's true.
And Schalke's still in a perfect
I think Schalke
position.
are a very good team as well. I'm looking at Schalke as a playoffs
This
contender.
is the thing that I'm ultimately debating. Where do both these teams fall in the grand scheme of things? Everyone's sitting at 2-2, you're right. Origen have only lost to Fnatic and G2, but if they now lose to Schalke, what does that say about this team, right? Is it just an early game, early split, slow start like it was last split, and they eventually ramp up towards the end? Or perhaps they're not as strong as they once were. The debate is always there, whereas for Schalke, they had a big change in Trick coming in, and hopefully that it was only an improvement based on what we saw last split. Now, of course, Schalke went 7-2 in their first half, so it's always going to be difficult to kind of impress upon that, but I think more fans are focusing on the second half as Odoamne.
He didn't really get to play League of Legends there.
No, he ends up dying, and yeah, so this is a great pickup from the side of Origen. They're able to find a kill onto Odoamne. We talked a lot about how they need to play towards their sides, and now what I'd like to see them do is actually start rotating towards the mid lane so they can start pressuring this mid-tier 1, because with the mid-tier 1 down, then they can finally set up vision towards the top side of the map and start actually threatening the Baron.
You can see how much vision is still there for Schalke in their own jungle. Nukeduck's pushing down towards the bottom side. They're chasing onto Patrik. Upset looking for the damage. Can't quite land the boomerang. Patrik took a couple of crits, but couldn't get enough out of that Ezreal. IgNar's pushing over towards Kold and Alphari. He'll just clear out a little bit more vision. Nukeduck gets the tower in the bottom lane. Now Origen are just slowly bleeding out Schalke, you have to feel.
But Schalke do keep their mid-tier 1 alive, which in their eyes is still very important.
At some point, Vedi, they're losing every other tower on the map.
Yeah.
The mid-tier 1 is important, but if you lose everything else, that can't be
But as long
good.
as they're not losing their Nexus towers,
That's
like,
true.
they're fine.
You are right.
And the inhibitor ones, as long as they're still up, then Schalke still have a solid line of defense. So I think, like, ultimately they made the decision here to say, fine, we'll sack the bot tier 2, but as long as it keeps mid alive, then that means Upset is still getting safe farm, he can keep pushing up in the wave, and we can always be in a position to gain priority over the river so that we can contest this ultimate objective that will decide the game. So here we have a cool look at Odoamne getting collapsed upon.
Promise you he took some damage there.
Yep, yes he did.
That he did. 15 CS away from Upset's 400 CS win condition. He's gone for a Hex Drinker. Expect that to be built into a more of Malmortius for that lifeline passive and for the extra shield against someone like Mithy or Alphari trying to nuke him from long range. Vision control still there for Schalke. They've got a couple of wards in the pit here, but Kold and Origen will try and set up that 4-man push down mid. It's what we wanted to see, Vedius. Use the pressure you have in the side lane and get 4 of your teammates around you so you can try and take that mid lane
So
tower.
what we should see now is Nukeduck, he's pushed at bot, now he wants to move up towards the mid lane. By generating 5 members mid, you can look to threaten this mid-tier 1, but Schalke's like, well, we're fine, because we've got top pushing and we're catching bot wave. Are you really going to dive as 4v5 when Kennen, he doesn't quite have his TP yet, but he potentially has his TP? Origen going to sit there and go, well, no. But what we will do is gain vision control around Baron. What are you going to do about that? So Schalke's like, well, okay, we can't see that objective right now, but we know you're not on it because you haven't pushed out top or mid. So Schalke's like, okay, we're fine for now. We'll just stay grouped up. Let's let Sivir actually go back to base and maybe look for a pick bot. Now, if Upset reveals himself, Origen can immediately go to Baron and start threatening it because remember, Upset is the main source of priority that Schalke have right now. He's their big carry player.
Oh, IgNar's been caught out a little bit here. The final spark comes out. Patrik jumping across the wall, but there's the teleport behind them. That's going to be Odoamne joining the back of the fight. Kold goes in, but goes golden. And Odo gets in with a slicing maelstrom straight onto the back line. Pop Blossom not going to catch up Patrik. Kold already down. Mithy flashing the wall, but Abbedagge is waiting with open arms. He uses his stopwatch to try and survive. Nukeduck jumps in with the Vanguard's edge. Alphari's on a rampage. That's 2. And Origen turned the fight around. Odo in the wrong place at the wrong time. A double for Patrik.
What looked like a great fight for Schalke to start off ends up going in Origen's favor. Chaos erupts on Summoner's Rift as both teams trade blow for blow. Origen, though, walk away as the victors.
And they might get the mid lane tower out of it as well, Vedius. We'll have another look at this fight because I thought when we saw this TP coming in, Schalke had it in the bag.
So I feel like committing to killing a Braum is very dangerous, especially when this teleport comes in through the Kennen. At this point, Origen need to disengage because Upset's in a prime position, Odoamne dives onto the backline, and they can just slowly start working their way through the Origen roster. But notice how Origen have now split up. Abbedagge's in a bit of an awkward spot. Meanwhile, Nukeduck is sitting on the flank and looking at these low health members saying, I can kill them. Nukeduck single-handedly zones Upset away. Meanwhile, 2 members are dying to the likes of Patrik and Alphari. So while a lot of the support staff from the side of Origen end up dying, the carries still remain alive. So the longer the fight goes on, as we said, the better it is for Origen. Schalke couldn't disengage, they end up losing the fight, and importantly, they lose that mid tier 1.
Patrik did such a good job in that fight. Caught in the slicing maelstrom, arcane shifts across the wall, immediately flashes to get away from the pop blossom. His positioning was darn right perfect. Now, Origen with the mid lane tower down can push in for some more of this vision. They clear out the river, and the Baron has to be on the cards. Nukeduck still has his teleport. He's down towards the bottom lane, highest level in the game, tied with Alphari. It's going to be very difficult to deal with that Irelia.
So now Origen want to regain mid priority. Notice how they're keeping pressure bot. They're using Alphari to just clear out the wave top. And notice how much harder it is now for Schalke to be able to move up to the wave and actually clear with the Sivir. There's a lot more darkness, there's a lot more risk associated with it. So now Origen will push their vision a little bit deeper. They want to try and force Schalke to be as uncomfortable as possible. And Schalke, they have very little information, so Origen are going to kick this one off. What will Schalke do? Will they try to fight? Or will they just give this one away?
Feel they have to fight, otherwise it's going to be a slow burn as that Baron goes down into 1-3-1 lanes. Trick stepping forward, no vision still. The Baron's gone, Mithy gets it. And Schalke unable to fight in time.
Thank you so much, observers, for highlighting what Schalke could see, because it was just darkness. Their options were limited. They had no idea how low the Baron was. It took them too long to be able to control the rest of the map for them to properly go and take this objective. And this is why we said that mid-tier 1 was so important. This is why Schalke were willing to sacrifice tier 2s to keep it alive. And the moment that they lost it, the Baron immediately goes in favor of Origen, and now they'll look to split up the map. Now they'll look to utilize their poke to siege onto Schalke's base and look to try and end the game.
It's so difficult now for Schalke to do anything. You've got Nukeduck in the side lane, you've got Alphari in the side lane. No one on your team can match them in the 1v1. You kind of have to force a 5v5 or a 5v3 in the mid lane, but how are you going to do that? On the hunt, run at them with the Sivir and try and get the chase in. You don't even have your flash on Kennen. You're not going to be able to chase down an Ezreal.
We saw Schalke try a couple of opportunities to flank Origen, but every time it didn't really work out. Unfortunately, now they don't have the vision except for that one ward in the mid lane. If Odoamne could find, or Abbedagge find that TP flank onto a pushing Origen, maybe that can be the fight that can swing the game back into the control of Schalke. But without it, Schalke are just going to slowly but surely lose their base.
Chip away at this tower, already down. A turret will fall in the mid lane. 5,000 gold lead for Origen. Nukeduck pushing top, trying to get those waves to crash at the same time if possible. With the cannon minions coming in as well, it's so hard to fight against this Baron buff.
Notice how Alphari is staying with the team, not actually going off onto a side lane, playing much more of a 1-4 style and utilizing Nukeduck to be the primary split pusher, with Alphari and Patrik actually staying together to poke the opposition away.
Ricochet's coming out here. Trick's going to chase in. Alphari uses the stopwatch. Redemption coming out as well. Upset already down to half HP, but Alphari's so low. Almost taking out the shields. He is huge. The pop blossom onto the backline, though. This is what Schalke wanted. The flank position as Kold just about escapes. Odo's going to fall. Origen get 2, and now they can fight back. But they don't need to. Schalke have retreated to their base, and Origen just wait for the next wave.
Schalke successfully hold the line, but they've only got 3 members left. Upset alone, trying to defend the tower against 4 members of Origen.
Nukeduck still has his ultimate as well, can just jump in. That tower's going to fall. Inhibitor turret down. Patrik almost kills Abbedagge with a jump forward. The final spark, not enough to take out the Neeko, but the inhibitor will fall, and Origen have broken the base of Schalke.
So again, what looked like a good fight for Schalke does not go in their favor. Alphari survived for so long on the front line. He didn't have his flash available. We can see here, great utilization of the Ezreal ultimate to actually... Oh, never mind. We'll ignore that one. Thank you, observers.
So we got faded. Thank you, observers. That was amazing.
Look at how long the survive comes out from Alphari for. He gets the redemption. He has the shield from his Q. He eventually drops, but he takes Trick with him. This makes it a 4 versus 4. And then Odoamne trying to threaten the backline. Unfortunately, he gets left by himself, as the rest of Schalke are too low to really follow up. So Origen, they end up getting 2 kills for 1, and they end up finally breaking into the base of Schalke.
That they do, and I think if you look at Upset scoreline, you can see playing the James Bond tactic at the moment, 007, he has a license to kill, but I'm sure Schalke would have hoped he picked up a few more throughout this game. It only took me 5 minutes to think of that one.
I love how he has a GA.
Yeah.
Like, you haven't been at risk this whole game.
But the one time he dies, he's coming back.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, that's a lot of damage coming out from Alphari with the Void Staff, the Ludens, and the Zhonyas. Oh!
Good sidestep there from
Great
Odoamne.
sidestep.
But props to...
That's
Redemption.
not enough. That's nowhere near enough.
Oh.
Redemption does like 300
Wow,
damage.
I feel like Origen is just throwing skill shots at the wall now.
They can waste them. They're so far ahead now in this game. They've broken through mid. They've got this big wave pushing in bot, and they just need to get the inhibitor tower. Upset takes a chunk, puts some damage back onto Patrik as well, but Upset looking to use that GA as soon as possible, it might seem.
Props to Alphari this game as well. Not only do we do a great job in the 1 versus 1, but I feel like he's constantly generated pressure in the side lane, and overall, I feel like he's been a massive rock for the team so far this split. And once again, he's having a great performance on the Viktor. 5, 1, and 4. Flame Horizon to Odoamne at long last. Meanwhile, Upset doing the same on the other side as IgNar trying to block the poke that is coming out from Schalke. Origen.
Patrik was caught out with the Glacial Augment there for a second. The True Shot Barrage coming out as well. Nukeduck just standing here in the mid lane, already level 18, out-leveling Odo by 2 whole levels. And it's very difficult, you have to think, for Schalke to defend from this position. Yes, perfect team fight, a perfect flank, we talk about it, but it's so hard against a team like Origen who are very good at disengaging, very good at resetting a fight whenever they want to.
Yep, I agree. I think that right now the game is looking very Origen-sided. However, they've spent a long time trying to secure themselves another inhibitor, which means that the Baron is going to be spawning soon. And Elder Drake is also on the card. You would expect that to be spawning in the near future as well. And so the longer this game goes, again, the more options that Schalke have. Level 18 has come through for Upset, for Abbedagge. Odoamne hit 16, so while he's still behind, he has 2 points in his ultimate. 3 points, rather, in his ultimate. And then once he completes that death cap, then Schalke don't look so weak anymore, you know? So Origen, they need to put their foot on the pedal a little bit more because Schalke, one big team fight, can swing this game back in their favor.
We saw it almost work for them in the last fight. Trick now has a GA of his own. And if Schalke find that fight, they can definitely get back into this one. Nukeduck still pushing in the side. I do want to come back to that Alphari point. At the start of the split, when we were talking about what we wanted to see from Origen, we talked a lot about seeing another carry really emerge, a guy that could really turn a game for this team. And I think Alphari and Patrik have really stepped into that sort of role this split. We've seen them both make, well, Alphari is much more consistent. Patrik's the guy that can sometimes make that stellar play that really turns a fight for you. So I'm very enthused to see Origen actually developing coming into Summer Split.
Yeah. And we'll see how far they can go, assuming they can win this game. Remember that Rift Rivals is next week. Definitely a couple of interesting storylines going into that. Sven versus Mithy, and Nukeduck, his first international event since 2013. Now, Baron has been starting off. Trick makes his way in. Fearless.
There's the gravity field though. Baron resetting. Alphari putting some damage down onto it. Upset stepping forward. Here's Abbedagge from the bottom line, chased away by Kold. Baron still aggroed onto Mithy. Schalke just trying to find what they can, and the Baron resets. Nukeduck's pushing down towards this bottom lane. Odo trying to deal with him, but chip damage on towards the tower. Double Oceans will help Schalke here, of course, with that regen.
Let's have a look at what ultimates we used. Ulti is gone for Trick. Ulti is also gone for Upset. So one of the big front lines and some of the big engage tools that Schalke want to use are unavailable. But Abbedagge still has his ulti up, making his way through the jungle, looking for an opportunity, won't be able to find it. So Origen like, you know what? We're going to disengage. We're going to play it safe. We're going to keep Nukeduck in the bot lane, regain priority in the bot side of the map, regain full river control, push out top lane. We can look to start the Baron up once again.
Trick has been super sneaky here. He stood in this top push for a while and now moved to the tri push and hasn't been spotted by Origen. They do not know he's there right now, and maybe he can find a good flank position. Yes, it's only an Olaf. Yes, it doesn't have too much, but here comes the on the hunt from Upset, looking to get onto that backline. Straight onto Patrik. The redemption coming out. Mithy's already done. Inhibitor tower falls in the bottom lane as Odoamne hasn't been able to hold off Nukeduck's advances. 1 for 0, but the inhibitor falling in that bottom lane. Abbedagge does have the Pop Blossom here, has flash as well if he wants to go in. Kold in with the Cataclysm teleport coming in from Odo as well. There's the Pop Blossom. Abbedagge is still alive. Kold's still alive. Patrik chased off, has to jump. Odo's going to flash in the slicing Maelstrom straight through the Ezreal, but Nukeduck's on the Nexus and he's looking for the wave. The teleport coming in as well.
Look at Origen. They're doing what they can to try and end the game. Upset, can he hold the line?
He's there. Trick's there. Abbedagge is there as well, but Nukeduck trying to do what he can to take down the Nexus. Alphari almost goes down with the stopwatch, keeps himself alive. Nukeduck will fall, but he'll revive with the GA. Alphari's dead. It's all on Nukeduck, but you don't think he can do too much here. Caught out. They take the Nexus towers, but Schalke take the win in the fight.
And Schalke have all 5 members alive and are able to come out on top of the fight. Beautiful stuff from the side of Schalke. They can now make their way towards the Baron and potentially come back into this game.
Oh my goodness, I thought for a moment Origen had it. Beyond the hunt, they're just popping
They're actually just running it down mid right now. No, they're not going to try and end the game,
They are ready, they are. Either that or they're going for at least an inhibitor. They at least want those super minions pushing in.
Let's see what they can do.
Well, you should be the one predicting this for me here. The inhibitor has been taken. Schalke, they're just going to push it in. 40 seconds gone down to 25 now on Nukeduck and Alphari. They're going for the base. We've seen Upset take a Nexus off the hands of Spike before. Kold gets rid of the minions, and now those towers are tankier. Abbedagge chunked out. Patrik up as well. He's slowed down, but he's going to use the QSS. Kold stunned up towards the top side. This concussive blows will proc, but Patrik can now step forward. Has that Iceborne Gauntlet for the slow if they want to go for the chase.
What teleports are available? Nukeduck is alive in 2 seconds.
And super minions at the base as well.
They just want to try and delay the backs from Schalke.
Nukeduck going straight in. Counter teleport could go out from Abbedagge, but already Nukeduck's in there. Abbedagge, someone's TPing in here. Nukeduck's just going for the Nexus. It's mid laner versus mid laner. It's the veteran versus the rookie. And Abbedagge cannot stop Nukeduck. You cannot stop Origen. Odoamne might have something to say about it. The Vanguard's edge going to slow him up, but Nukeduck is on the Nexus, and Origen take the win.
A much crazier ending than I was expecting, but Schalke definitely put up a fight. That sneaky backline flank from Trick ended up working wonders for Schalke. They found so many big kills off the back of that, and they were able to defend the split-pushing Nukeduck. But they decided to go for the end rather than the Baron, and as a result, Origen had enough time to respawn, come back on the map, and get the backdoor. Is that the action that you wanted?
Yeah, I mean, we got them in the end, okay? They gave us kind of 40 minutes of action condensed into about 4 minutes of gameplay. Schalke shouldn't be too dismayed. I think there's a few things they can work on, of course, coming into the future weeks. But as you say, after this week, we have a bit of a break. They can reevaluate and they can see how they want to play after week 4 of the LEC.
I think it was very difficult for them ultimately to find a lot of the engages that they were looking for. They utilized their early pressure very well. I liked what they were doing in the early game. I liked where Trick was playing around his bot lane, setting up for invades, stealing objectives away from Origen. But in the mid game, it slowed down a lot. Their whole game plan was to keep that mid tower alive, and the moment Origen took it, they ended up winning the game.
That they did. We're getting some high fives here from the Origen lads. Good end to the game, guys. Great fun.
Excellently played. Well, sort of.
It was enjoyable to watch. We'll give them that. It was fun.
Excellent viewing experience.
It was, Vedius.
But Origen, they do find the win. If they find another win, then they could go into Rift Rivals having only lost to G2 and Fnatic. And that would be the ideal situation for Origen. A lot of confidence coming off the back of that, and sets up for some really hype storylines as they go up against the North America.
Oh, it really does. The quality of the top 3 teams in the LEC seems to be rising and rising week after week to
well, I will say, we got to be honest here, Medic. G2 and Fnatic definitely feel like a cut above everyone else right now, because even though Origen a lot are mainly in the conversation for that third best team, like this kind of performance doesn't invoke a lot of confidence, right? Because we saw a couple of mistakes. We did see Windows get punished. They were a lot slower in their ability to end the game, and you can give credit to Upset in that regard. You can say that Schalke did a great job of stalling, but at the same time, you can't just forgive Origen for all of that, right? That was a much slower game than it arguably needed to be, and I'm sure that they're going to be frustrated with how that game ultimately played out.
They definitely are. Now remember guys, these teams are fighting for a spot in the LEC Finals. It's the 7th and 8th of September. It's in Athens. Pre-sale tickets go live next Friday. That's the 28th, so make sure you secure a seat there. I'm definitely going to be sitting there. You're going to be sitting there?
I imagine so.
You might be standing.
I might be standing.
You never know.
I'm definitely hoping to watch the games at least.
I hope to watch them as well. We've got Alphari, Kold, and Nukeduck fighting for Key Player of the Game. Go and vote on @lolesports on Twitter. I think there's good choices all round. Yeah. I don't think we're going to have to give it one way or the other here.
Give it to Alphari. I think you do that.
Well, I said we shouldn't, and then you decided to.
Just give it to Alphari.
I feel there's a bit of discord here between us here, Vedius. I think we agreed that Wonder is the best pike in the LEC.
Alphari.
You say Caps, and it's just, I very much disagree with that strategy.
No, in all
So you
seriousness,
think Nukeduck?
I mean, so I think Nukeduck overall had a very solid game, but I don't think he was influential. Well, I say he was influential in the outcome. He made the backdoor happen, right? So if you want to give it to Nukeduck, I'm not going to be angry at you. I think that's fair.
You wouldn't like him when he's angry. I do see what you mean about Alphari, though. He was very strong in the early game. He got that lead, helped out by Kold a little bit as well, and really shut down Odoamne incredibly effectively.
Yeah, I thought he was very, very solid.
Well, we are actually going to hand it over to an interview with that Viktor player from the last game. It's Alphari over with Law.
Thank you, Medic, and thank you, Alphari, for joining me. I'll go straight into it. Tell me about the last move, communication and all. How did you set it up?
I mean, honestly, the last move wasn't set up at all. We actually messed up, like dying, and they could have maybe ended the game. But Jonas, Kold managed to kill the minions, so they were kind of trolling, not defending the minions. I don't know what's going on. And then we just called, you know, they actually can't fight. If they fight, we have TP and the game ends. Yeah. So they just had to run, and it was really close, but Nukeduck still managed to get the X-Backer.
Yeah, really smart move from you guys, and you didn't have the best early game to begin with. It felt like Schalke were one step ahead of you guys, especially around Drakes at the beginning of the game. So what went wrong in the early game?
I mean, I never felt like we were behind early game in the game, but I know that we took like a bad fight at Dragon at like 6 minutes, something like this. So that's probably just a little bit greedy from our end. Like our comp scales pretty well into mid game with like 2 item Ezreal spike, so it's probably safer to just chill. But yeah, I never really felt like we were behind, so there was no pressure.
Fair do, fair do. One thing that I find interesting enough about OG is the fact that you only lost to the 2 best teams, and even then you were ahead most of the time. So what made it look difficult against Schalke today?
I think it was because they had Sivir wave clearing mid the whole game, and we couldn't get the mid tower. It was really hard without Herald. So that kind of stalled the game, and we were kind of like unsure exactly how to crack the game open. So yeah, it was just kind of Sivir wave clearing mid lane and just like thinking, well, okay.
And you turned it around in the end. Nice victory from you guys, so congratulations on that. But we still have many more things to say about this game, so back to you, Trevor.
Thank you very much, Law. What an insane ending to the game. I actually thought for a moment that Origen could have thrown away 25 minutes of build-up. So without going too much into the rest of the game, I want to just take a look at the base races. Hopefully it starts at what was an Olaf flank at Baron. And you were losing it once Trick started running in.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy because we'd been waiting for like 10 minutes. Like, Schalke, how can you force a fight? You have no tools. And then all of a sudden Olaf's like, surprise, comes out of the bush with a flash and tries to find it. And it's actually, it starts with him up into Tribrush on the flank here while Nukeduck is pushing bottom.
And again, reminder that while you have Neeko and Kennen, it is so difficult for them to find the flanks to start the fights because of Origen's vision that it's actually Trick who ends up on the side catching them out.
Yeah, and this whole time, Schalke, they know they must force something. They want to start up the Baron, but they can't because bot lane, they're getting pushed in. And then, of course, this happens where they commit the teleport into this to make this a 5 versus 4, while Nukeduck says, no, I'm going to stay bot lane because he thinks he can make the end.
But unfortunately, the scary thing is then you have a wealth of options. You know, what do Schalke do with this current situation? They have to send someone back because they have to stop Nukeduck, but he has the GA, so it takes forever to take him down. And then what do you grab? Do you go for the Baron? Do you go for the Elder? Do you run it straight down mid?
I mean, as this play was happening, I'm like, surely you just have to blitz and take both neutral objectives. But even if Schalke do that, we know they get outscaled in the team fights. They lose all their side lane matchups. So I respect their decision to try and make this Hail Mary play to go for the finish.
But here's the thing. I'm going to echo the sentiment that we just got from, I believe, Alphari right there. They're trolling. There's no way that they were ever going to have the minion wave or the death timer to be able to run it all the way back up mid. So I agree with your former point, Ender. They should have blitzed both objectives, Baron and Elder.
Yeah, even then they would still be in a really tough position. And as this happens, you see Schalke are trying to run away, but OG can just keep using their summoner spells to commit forward and stop the recalls, because ultimately Nukeduck in the 1v1 is going to smash Abbedagge so we can turn to the next.
And you know, maybe this is a different look if you're not dealing with the line damage that someone like Lux can do to clear a minion wave from so far away, because Schalke did the right thing. They were trying to tank for the minion waves to keep them alive so they would get rid of the fortification onto the towers, but you're not counting for the fact that Lux has the ult.
I absolutely love it, by the way. Right now, very respectful in the replay. I appreciate the call from Schalke. I see they're trying to take a win.
He was losing it during the game.
Backstage, Ender was like, they are hard trolling into Lux because of the reasons you just said. But listen, I want to take a look at the picks and bans that's on your screen now, because the very end of that replay was Neeko going up against Irelia. Neeko was first pick for Schalke. Irelia picked up red side for Origen. And Frosk, you had some strong words about Schalke's decision-making.
This felt like big brain. Okay, so both teams knew what the priority picks were going to be. Now, Neeko does have a decent matchup into Irelia, so you can think, as I'm Origen, if I ban Sejuani and I leave Irelia open, there's a possibility that Schalke take it, or they take Neeko and they try to win the matchup there. Schalke decided to go for Neeko. Now, my concern is I personally think that Irelia is such a strong champion due to her flexibility and due to her gank setup, due to her 2v2 power, that I prioritize Irelia. And to me, this reads that Schalke, yes, you can get an advantageous matchup, but I think Irelia just gives more over time, especially in scaling later on in side lanes. And Origen knew, if they take Irelia, we're not afraid of it. And then they got the more powerful second pick on red side.
Well, it definitely worked out for Origen, and you talked about that scaling in the side lanes. And talk me through the passage of play from about 17 minutes until that, final fight. It felt like Origen were just calm, collected, in control.
Well, that's the thing, right? Origen are never pressured to make a play because ultimately both side lane matchups, wherever the Irelia goes, she's going to beat what Schalke are bringing to the table. So Origen can just maintain control, use Ezreal to clear away waves while this Irelia is pushing in the bottom lane because they're super safe. They're never at risk of anything. They can keep pushing because on the other side you have a Kennen, and Olaf, and a Braum. How does that team ever find engage? I think it was a huge mistake for Schalke to go for the Kennen when they have Olaf and Braum because there's no first engage. Kennen wants to come in second.
Frost before we have to move on.
I feel like it was kind of like their game plan shifted. Like, I think it's really easy to kind of sit back at the end of drafts and be like, Schalke, what were you thinking? But I think initially when they came out, they're like, look at our strong 2v2 between Neeko and Olaf. But it was as the second part of the draft shifted that Origen were able to cover more bases and have a more well-rounded composition. So I think in the split second, planning for draft, that Origen just won out.
I think there were two really smart choices from OG. They banned Nautilus and Thresh in the second rotation. Two pick supports, two playmaking supports. And then what is Schalke forced onto? Braum.
And it didn't work out. They had no primary engage. It meant Schalke couldn't make any plays. And that Irelia that was so controversial here on the desk ends up winning the key player of the game. Nukeduck winning with 49% of the votes. Now, as Mithy and Vedi mentioned on the desk, Origen have only lost to G2 and Fnatic. Now they've picked up their first win against Schalke. These are our three teams going to Rift Rivals next week. We don't have time to talk about it now, but hopefully we will in PGL. Game 5 today, it is our match of the week. The undefeated G2 eSports taking on the undefeated Fnatic. Coming up next, though, Misfits with Maxwell in the jungle take on SK. Don't go anywhere.
Why? Irelia.